your marriage, caring, always wanting what's best for you, or for me, and I'll hug you the next time I see you. The list was obviously just the tip of the iceberg, and yet I felt in the short time that we spoke, you understood all of what I was trying to say. I knew, and I didn't have to tell you all the reasons after all. I know that you know that I love you. And yet it was kind of fun to spell it out at a time when absolutely nothing significant was wrong. For whatever reason, it sometimes takes a crisis to realize all we've been blessed with and to share with each other. I wanted you to know that I'm aware of just how great I have it to have you as my father. It's not even a thought, you're simply the best. After hanging up the phone and feeling content about having communicated so nicely with you, I realized I'd failed my tip of the iceberg checklist. I covered them all except the last and found myself justifying not having done so with the explanation that surely you knew where I was coming from and I didn't have to hug you to prove it. Well, I don't have to hug you to prove it. My proof is the way I live my life. I have heard it said that the measure of a man's success is not his material wealth, but rather how effectively he has raised his children and bringing them closer to God. My aspirations are to prove your success. By doing that, I prove my love. Dad, thanks again. I love you. And let's have some fun. Well, we did have a lot of fun after that. And we are very blessed as a family to have the relationships that we all have with everybody in this room. We are all children of God, and our time here is only temporary. I'm happy for my faith, what it teaches us, and the hope it provides for eternal life. Thank you all for coming.
Boss is doing the job tonight. I know John. I've known John ever since I came to St. Anthony's 30-some years ago. I had three things I was going to say, and I can't remember what they were. First, I guess, is when I was coaching his youngest son, Christopher, 23 years ago, at soccer. A sport which John thought was okay. And he asked me what I coached, and I said I coached soccer. He's not too bad. But I was coaching Christopher, and Shanley had come to a point where it was the smallest team in the state, I mean, as far as numbers, and I was playing freshmen with size 14 shoes against seniors who were 6'2" and 180 pounds. And my best player was so slow he had to pound stakes to see if he was moving. But yet we qualified for the state tournament. We went to the state tournament in Grand Forks, and I had gone to John and asked him, John, how can I get Christopher to concentrate on playing his best game and not get mad and not get a yellow card and a second yellow card, and then we're playing a man short? And he said, take a rubber band and put it around his wrist and tell him to snap it whenever he got mad. You remember me telling this, Mary? I said, okay. And he said, then tell him to pluck the grass, but not to throw it at the ref. Just pick the grass up and throw it in the wind to test the wind. So, okay. So before the game, I've got this great big rubber band, the one that you see at the post office, that actually you could use it in your car if you had to for a belt. And it goes real tight around the wrist, and I brought it up to Chris, and I put it on his wrist, and I said, Chris, no penalties today. Your temper is going to be under control today. your last game of your high school season, and we're gonna win third place. We're gonna do this. And he's going, yeah, okay. Don't get mad, hold him by the shoulders. And I said, you're gonna do fine. I said, now, whenever you get angry, you take that and you snap it 10 times till it hurts. And then you won't get concentrated on saying things to the referee. Don't shoot your mouth out. We want this game to be won. We want to win this. We want to come out ahead. And what happened was, Chris got a hat trick. 3-zip. And on the last score, he takes it one-on-one, going in, and their keeper came out and pulled a cheap shot, went in high on him with his heels at the groin level. Caught his knee. Chris got the goal and ended up in the hospital. About an hour later, there was the award ceremony, and Chris got Player of the Tournament award. And so I had to bring it to Mom. I gave it to Mom because Chris was working at that point when I brought it over. But that was one thing John told me, was how to deal with people. He said, just be honest with them. Just look them in the eye and hold them and say what you meant. Okay, thanks, John, I appreciate that. And then years later, the second thing I want to remember and tell you was that John and I were talking about our children. And we were talking about, what had happened to them and how close we were to them and how close they were to us. And I told him about what happened to my sons and what they were doing. And he said, he told me about his children. And I said, boy, they've all done real well. And he says, yeah. He says, I found it remarkable they did, coming from a Lebanese father and an Irish mother. They didn't stand a chance. Either all they could look forward to being was a terrorist or a priest. I said, where's that leave Lisa? He said, well, boy, I tell you, I didn't think for much. That was your dad. And the third thing was that when John started to decline, he would come over to the parish for parish functions, and I just loved running up to him saying, John, get your skates on. Third period, we got to put you in second line. He said, what's wrong? I didn't make the first. 80 years old, 82 years old, he said that. He would have done it too. Thanks.
I'm Tom Noah. I've got it easy tonight. My daughter is going to do all the talking. This is Drew Noah. Can you see her?
So you all know that this is my grandpa, and I am his granddaughter. He was loving, caring, gentle, and fun. I loved him, and he loved me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Noah. I'm the oldest son of John and Mary. And you trying to coach me on something? Make it short. You want to hear her confessions? All right. I was going to say something nice about you, but no. It is often said about fathers that as you grow up, they are your first face of God the Father. And I believe that's true, and I think that has a big impression upon you as a young man or young lady. And it's the only father you know. You don't know about, you don't see somebody else's father very often to be able to compare and contrast until you get a little bit older and you see the differences. And so I just want to say to you that he was my first impression of God the Father. And I know that God the Father is both strict and righteous and loving and had all those qualities. And one thing else that I can say about him is that there was not a Hippocratic bone in his body. What he said is how he lived. And that had a big impression, especially on someone who's thinking, okay, should I be like him or not? Is he living the way he tells me I should live? And he did. And there's a lot of examples in our family about people like that. Now I can tell you why he became a hockey player. Would you like to hear that story? Okay. This goes back to when he was a young lad and growing up in Crookston. And he's just in the same room with his 3 older brothers, Tim, Dan, and Joe. And he asks Tim, so what are you going to do when you grow up? And he says, well, I'm going to be a priest. I'm going to go study 4 years of college and then go to seminary 3 years. Oh, okay. That sounds pretty impressive. Dan, what are you going to do? And I was going to try to do a Dan impersonation here, but I just don't want to try it. It's just, if you mess it up, it's not going to sound good. So Dan said, I'm going to be a priest too, and all that. And so my dad's looking at this and thinking, oh my goodness, my 2 oldest brothers are going to be priests, all that studying, all that work. Joe, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go to law school after I graduate. And they asked Johnny, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm just going to go outside and play some hockey. And he did that to escape the reality that his older siblings were all going to be accomplished priests and lawyers. So he'd often say that he graduated barely with all the bonehead classes at the University of North Dakota. And looking at some of the grades, he might have been accurate in that one thing. So. But one thing you can say about him that maybe you couldn't say about all the brothers is that, and I look at all these people here and I'm thinking, you know, I know what he was like and I loved him and you were friends to him, most of you. And he touched you in some way and you touched him, and he was always that kind of very gregarious, very friendly, sort of happy-go-lucky guy. Now, I'll close with a few stories because the statute of limitations are over and he can't be prosecuted for any of this stuff. Okay, so yes, he did find his way into UND hockey games along with many other people. He also got free parking there by going up to the parking attendant and rolling down the window quickly and saying handicap and then just speeding forward. I was happy to actually get my first job so I could have my first new set of clothes upon graduation from college. I thought that I was living the alternate life of Dennis Hogan. Is Dennis here? Dennis used to contribute all these clothes to the family, so I was wearing a lot of it. And then all my hockey gear had the name Marks on it. Yes, it was John Marks' old gear from the University of North Dakota. So I had gloves and breezers from John Marks. And then, of course, whenever we went up to Warroad, we always came back with about 6 hockey sticks, which was pretty much the only way that any of his sons could play hockey, is to have some free sticks from the Christian brothers. They knew what was going on and all that. And he actually started hockey at Shanley twice. The first time was in the early 60s for a bunch of boys. He didn't know any, they weren't his sons, okay? I was his oldest, and at the time that I was getting ready to go to high school, I just said, Dad, I can't go to Shanley. There's no hockey there. Can I go to Warroad and live with the Christians? And of course, didn't know what I was talking about at the time, because that would have meant leaving home. And I just wanted to go up there for the hockey season. I wanted to play hockey, so what he did was kind of profound. What he did for a lot of kids, he did for us boys, and that is he started the program at Shanley with Father Tim. And we played in the Durham Conference. Yeah, Durham in North Dakota. Durham wheat, I didn't realize that was a... And we played Park River, Grafton, and Bismarck, and all the Bismarck schools. They were just starting hockey and all that, but we played. And my greatest accomplishment as a hockey player, I didn't believe me, the apple fell way away from the tree. In my case, I must have been adopted because I didn't have any hockey ability whatsoever. But we caused Grand Forks Red River to lose the state championship the year that I think that I was a senior and Dave was the best player in our team as a freshman. But they beat us 15-2, and I think when they lost the championship to Central, the Red River coach said, yeah, that first game playing Shanley, all of our timing was off because all the boys were just trying to put the puck in the net as often as they could, and they forgot how to play as a team. That is the other team, and I think Dave probably got the 2 goals that we see before. I don't know. But I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you for remembering my father. and the life that he lived. And I'm so happy that he touched yours enough so that you would be here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat, and I'm the third oldest of the nieces of Uncle John. And in a way, I kind of beat you guys to the job because I was one of his, I was one of his first kids. And I say that in a Lebanese kind of way because when you're part of a Lebanese family, you have not two parents, but you have every aunt and uncle. So every Tuesday, Father, Dan, and Tim would come home to us, and have a big Thanksgiving every Tuesday. And we were there for lunch and for dinner. And all my uncles and my aunts were there, and they were telling us to mind our P's and Q's along with my own mom and dad. I remember every time I'd ride with Uncle Johnny, including on his wedding day, and he'd come to a stop sign, people thronged around that car. He was almost late to the wedding. Because as he'd pull up, there would be people running up to talk to him. Now, step forward about 10 years or something. I was now a graduate of high school, and I went out to New York to join Aunt Mary and Uncle John. He was completing his master's out there at NYU. My Aunt Mame had gone out with him in the car to help with Matt and Lisa, who were young people. Lisa, you were just a little baby. And he was still my dad because I came home one day from having gone around New York City seeing the sights, and I told him about this guy that I had met, and he was my age, and he had tickets to West Side Story that had opened up at that time. And my God, you couldn't get West Side Story tickets, so I told Uncle